Father, we just thank the Lord for your grace and mercy. Just thank the Lord for the honor and privilege it is to serve you in the roles that you put us in. Lord, we just thank you for that. Lord, we ask for wisdom and guidance as we start a school year. Lord, it's a school year with a lot of unknowns, a lot of apprehension. Lord, we just ask that you quell the tide, just calm the storm, Lord, just that maybe we open it up safely and focus on our kids and their needs, Lord, this school year, just to keep all of us safe, our employees and our students. Lord, just look to you for guidance and wisdom, and may everything we say, everything we do, may it honor and please you. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Edison. Board members, you have received the public comments. They've been distributed to everyone, to all the board members to review, and they have been attached to our minutes. We also have some guests here that from a request from board member Asbel, and that is from our Levy County Health Department, and we would like to ask them to, yes, Mr.
Maybe before we get into that, let's go ahead and adopt the agenda.
That's right. That's correct. Thank you very much. I did skip that.
She was testing y'all, so.
That's right. That's it. I'm glad y'all caught
I
that.
know you've been on vacation, and congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Uh-huh.
Good job, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, board members, do I hear a motion to adopt our agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes to adopt the agenda. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go ahead and we will call our Levy County Health Department up to our podium.
Come on, Diesel.
Yes, it's Father Rock and Jeannie Morris.
Yes, please come up.
Board members asking questions, we'd like to ask some questions and such. So we've asked you to, we thank you for coming tonight. I know you don't have anything else to do.
Oh,
Nothing going on.
Hello.
no, this is important,
You're
so,
not busy at all, I know that.
yeah, right. It's important that we're here, so we're happy to be here. If you can't understand me through the mask, let me know. I'm trying to talk a little louder, but, so what kind of questions do you have, or did you want us to say something, or solve all the problems?
I guess I'm the one who kept beating the horse to have you here. And
Well,
here's
thank
my
you.
reasoning. It's not just necessarily for me, but also we have people that are watching this. We also have it on YouTube. And none of us are healthcare professionals. I'll be honest with you. I have no idea what the protocol is. And this is why I say I have no idea. A friend of mine said, hey, man, I was tested positive. I was like, wow, what do you do? And he goes, well, they told me I could go back to work next week. And I was like, I don't know if you can go back to work next week. So I went asking people, what have you heard? What have you heard? And that particular day, I asked 5 different people the answer to that, and 5 different people gave 5 different answers. So I said,
I'm not surprised.
I am very much let's go to the horse's mouth, and not that you're a horse, but I am that person who believes let's
Thank
go
you.
to the person and say, what is the scenario? What is, and in our meetings, it's, well, we're going to defer to the protocols of the health department. That's all well and good, but when people out there ask me, what are y'all going to do?
Right.
I have no idea what your protocol
Yeah,
is.
you'd like
So-
to know.
So my question is this. I'm working at Middle High School, and I am positive for COVID-19. I found positive for COVID-19. As me, the employee, when do I come back to work? That's my first question, and I'll give you all mine. When do I come back to work? What's that process? Second, what happens to those kids in my class and the people I was exposed to, and how does that work? Exactly who needs to stay home, who can still come, who at my house needs to stay there? What are those? What are the real stories? And I'm also one of these people that goes, and I readily admit this, I don't have a side in this, but depending on what news source you watch or what page you read on Facebook or whatever you see on Twitter, they're going to give you a different answer too. So I believe in what is the full plan. How about that?
What's the truth?
What is the
What's
actual
real
truth? That's what I want to hear, the truth.
Okay, so one of your teachers tests positive. They just decided because they wanted to know to get tested. They had no symptoms. Comes back in 3 to 5 days, you're positive. Oh my goodness. Then what happens is we get all the positives and negative lab tests through a data system called Merlin. Every lab in the state of Florida is required by law to report the results of COVID-19 testing. So we know it almost faster than the person knows it. We get a list every morning, printout, so to speak, of all the results. We see the positives, we call that person and let them know the good news, you're positive, and we talk to them, do you have symptoms? We also try to find out who their contacts are. Turns out I'm a teacher at, where'd you say, Williston School. Not good news. We don't want to hear that, but okay, so you're a teacher. You had no symptoms, but you want to get tested and you're positive. So what we'll tell you is that you need to quarantine, isolate for 14 days at home from the date of your test. So you got tested on the 10th, you come back 14 days later, the 24th. 14
Come back
days.
to you or come back to work?
Come back to work.
Okay.
We give them all the educational information about isolating in the home, wearing a mask around other family members, all the hygiene messages and all the good information that you hear about on TV every day. So then we find out, okay, she has 20 kids in her classroom. Let's just say, what is she, an 8th grade teacher? She teaches math. So then the question becomes, are you cohorting your students? Did they stay with the same teacher all day? Did the same groups go from here to here? Are they going all over the place? Like 5 of them go on to this class, to that teacher, 5 more go on to this class. What is the school board doing? Are you cohorting? What are you trying to do to keep students together? That would make life a lot simpler if you did that. Then we would only exclude those kids because they're the ones who've had contact with that teacher. Nobody's worn a mask, okay? Teacher hasn't worn a shield, no mask, no kids. Everybody's in that classroom. Teacher's talking, right? And when you're talking, the virus is spreading. Those kids who are in that classroom are all considered contacts. So they all go home for 14 days. They should probably get tested, wouldn't hurt. But now we have a problem. If that teacher moves around, that could be a problem. If the teacher stays with just those kids, that's a good thing. But then we ask her, okay, did you eat lunch with 5 other teachers? Who have you been around all day? Those people are also considered contacts, and they also have to isolate for 14 days. So there's also another routine. Say you have a teacher who has symptoms, went home sick with a headache, cough, fever. She decides to see her doctor. The doctor says, let's be safe, get you tested. She comes up, or he, positive for COVID. Takes 3 to 5 days for test results to come back, sometimes longer depending on where you get tested. So then we go by symptoms. It's either 10 days from when you first develop symptoms, I should say, 72 hours, right, Jeannie, since you had resolution of symptoms. So it ends up being almost 14 days, okay? Same thing, who are your contacts? And is it one classroom? So we find out we interview that person over the phone. Who are your contacts? Those contacts are all notified by our staff, and we tell them they have to isolate 14 days. Even if they go and test and they're negative, maybe it's only been 4 days since they had the last contact with that positive person. You can become positive up to 14 days. That's why 14 days. So after the 14th day. So those kids are home on telework, or what do you call it,
Virtual.
virtual, thank you, virtual, doing those 14 days on virtual. And the teacher who can't work is either doing the virtual with the kids or whatever. If a teacher's asymptomatic, there is a possibility that that teacher could come back to an empty classroom with a mask on, not be around anybody, and do virtual, or do other things. Or that's up to the school board, how you want to handle the teacher that's positive with no symptoms. Does that make sense? So,
Because you have no symptoms and you're tested, we go by the date that you're tested.
Correct.
For the isolation period. If you have symptoms, we go by the date of your first symptom. And that's how we determine how long your isolation date is.
Plus you also have to be free of symptoms for
Right.
72 hours. So that's where people get confused. And there's also a difference between essential and non-essential workers. Almost seems like everybody in the whole world is essential. I don't know if education is on that essential list. Healthcare workers are, teachers should be.
Amen.
What that means, if you're an essential worker, that may allow you to come back to work under certain conditions a little sooner. And that's why I mentioned the teacher who may be positive but no symptoms could possibly be back in this room by herself doing, if you had work for that person to do, because they may be considered essential. Most people are considered essential, except for like why they shut down bars, restaurants, gyms, massage parlors, movie theaters. They're not essential workers. But a lot of infrastructure people are, and I'm assuming education maybe, but that kind of complicates everything. So what will happen is the health department gets notified every day of all our positives, no matter where you got tested, who tested you. We get it all. We know it all. And we're on the phone immediately, as quickly as we can, to contact that person and tell them what they have to do. Because of HIPAA, I'm not picking up the phone to call your personnel director, to call your superintendent, to call the principal, the school board. I cannot tell you who's positive. If they want to tell you, that's great. That would be wonderful. But we cannot tell you who that person is. They have to leave it up to, it's their responsibility to tell their supervisor, I have to isolate for 2 weeks. Clue number one. So we are not telling anybody who's positive.
We will provide a letter for them saying that we request that they isolate for 14 days. And then we also give them a letter at the end of the 14 days when they finish their isolation, clearing them to return to work.
And most people want that, so.
Now, does that mean that you won't notify the school a person there was positive?
We notify the person and the contacts.
Okay, but there's no phone call to Williston High School that I was, not saying me, there's no phone call made saying you had a teacher was positive today.
We could say a person in your school system tested positive. We could say that a person tested positive in Williston Middle High School. That's all I could say. I can't give out identifiable information. Now, I guess I could say a teacher, because you have
A whole lot of teachers.
a whole lot of teachers, so it would be hard for you to figure out. I mean, eventually you're going to know. Believe it or not, people love to put it on Facebook. They love to tell everybody, and pretty soon, you know, everybody knows. I mean,
And if the teacher decides to tell everybody, that's fine.
that's their business, yeah, but we don't. We don't put anything on Facebook.
Piggyback off this. So Miss Barbara, so we're using Cameron's example. Cameron, staff member, teacher at Williston Middle High School. So who are you going to contact? Who's our point of contact then for here, us, and at Williston? Is that's Kaylee, and then you're gonna contact the school and say, Mr. Slim or Miss Westfall
That's what
Mr.
we've done
Ben.
so far, the health department and I are.
or
Yes.
we've had a staff member that's.
Again, it's
Yeah,
up
we
to
can
the
just have
staff
a
member to
staff
tell whoever they are told to tell. They don't have to tell you. That's
Or
up
if
to
they
them.
give permission to us to reveal it, then we could, but if they have to do that. They
I
have
would
to.
rather they do it on their own than to give us, I mean, they can give us verbal, but it's better they do it on their own. But I don't call your personnel person, I don't call you, I don't call anybody and say, oh, your teacher, we can do a general thing, but I mean, you're gonna figure it out eventually when all these kids don't come back to school, I guess.
So. we'll
Is
just
that your
use this
concern?
example right here. Here we sit. Cameron tested positive.
Yeah, you're not 6 feet apart and you don't have masks on, so every one of you are considered at risk of getting infected. And if one of you are not infected by the end of 2 months, I'll be surprised. Because just about everybody is in groups. And so, here we are with masks on and you're telling your staff and your schools to 6 feet, social distancing, wearing masks, and what is everybody here doing? Are you wearing masks?
No.
No. Are you 6 feet apart?
We try distance, not exactly 6 feet to eat.
I'm just saying,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
asking
Sure.
your staff to wear masks are optional. You're not asking, it's optional, I understand. For all the-
Strongly recommended.
But it's strongly recommended.
Okay, so in a situation, so if we're here, and so let's say half that class of Mr. Asbill's class wore masks, those kids can continue going to school.
No,
It depends on a case-by-case basis. I mean, did they have a mask on the entire time? Did they have any contact during the day that they were less than 6 feet, that they,
it's not gonna.
it goes into like a home situation. I mean, if you're in a home, it's hard to get 6 feet apart. I mean, even wearing a mask.
Classroom, it's
And
impossible.
the classroom is the same, because you're in that classroom all day long.
Because our classrooms weren't designed to be socially
I mean, really,
distanced.
it's not gonna help. It's not gonna help even if they had a mask on because you can't prove they had it on the whole entire time with the teacher. So, I mean, it protects them to some degree, but not 100%. There is no 100% risk-free anything.
So if the teacher, before they enter school, puts a mask on, they have a mask on the entire day, they never take the mask off and they teach it to class, and they test positive, we don't have to isolate all those children because they wore a mask, right? This
You
is
mean
one of
the
those
teacher?
rumors I've been told. If the teacher tests positive and all the multiplying effect that you talked about earlier, if that teacher was masked the whole time, we don't have to isolate all those children.
You probably will, because no way to prove she wore that mask 24 hours a day, every day. Or 7 hours a day.
So,
I mean, there is some protection, but it's not 100%. And then the way the information we have right now today is that the mask is not going to be 100%. It helps the person who's positive from spreading it, but it doesn't necessarily help the people who are negative who have a mask on. It's complicated, but
Just not.
there's no way around it. And
So for, and this is a pie in the sky, where does this end? Where does the health department and the government say COVID-19's over with, you can take your shield and mask off, you can go back to doing what you
I've been
always
asking
done?
that question for 2 months and wishing that I could say it had an end because we're all tired of it. But it's never going away. It's always going to be with us, even with vaccine. So it's
So we're
not,
gonna wear a mask and we're gonna social distance and we're gonna do this forever.
as long as the experts think we should, yes. That's an individual decision, so.
Hopefully we'll get a vaccine that we can vaccinate.
Look how many people get flu vaccine. Not verily 50% over 65 have taken advantage of it. we treat the flu like it's nothing, and yet kids die every year from the flu. Adults die every year from the flu, and yet, do we take that seriously? No. I'm just saying, those are the facts, you know.
Yes, ma'am. And then the vaccine does make some people sick because it's a live vaccine.
All I can say to all of you is we can only do the best we can do to protect our students and our teachers. You can be 100% perfect. The nursing homes are close as you can get to 100%, and yet they have outbreaks. Prisons, same thing. Daycare, same thing. So the best you can say is when it does happen, we're prepared, and we are, to handle it. If parents don't need to get upset, nobody needs to get upset. We'll deal with it, we'll take care of it, and that'll be that. It's no different than any other communicable infectious disease that we deal with every day in our health departments, in our clinics. We have kids come in all the time that are sick and have things that are communicable. So this is not new for us. We're used to handling it. It's a lot of work, but because we're talking about how many cases now? 600? Over 600 in Levy County? And every case has what, 5 or 10 contacts?
Some of them have 20 or more.
And we have to call every single one of those. We have to write it up, put it in a database. It takes massive amounts of time and people to do all this.
Can you release how many of those cases are symptomatic?
Probably less than you would think. I would say it's probably not more than 20%.
Right.
And we know children don't generally have symptoms. When most kids get over it, the biggest, although high school kids are probably more like adults, more likely to show symptoms. And they're harder to control, the teenagers. They're more likely to get
Social
together,
distance.
sports,
Yeah.
parties, whatever.
And just
You
from
can
a,
tell them to socially isolate, but they
Yeah.
don't.
right, and tell
Oh, no, but
you
adults don't.
a second grader wear a mask. There's just one more question I have, and that's it. So once a person, symptomatic or not, has tested positive and gone through it, whether they take an antibody test or not, I'm not gonna say they're immune, but their immune system's generally above the virus from that point forward, correct?
That's what we understand, sure.
But at this point, they don't know for how long, because we've never dealt with it.
Well, just like a vaccine, the vaccine's
Right.
only good for so.
We know a lot of our vaccines, we've had to come back and give them twice. Varicella, MMR, they're all examples of we thought one would do it, but it doesn't, only gives like an 80 or 90%. So you come back and get a booster to boost it. And that would happen as well.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that, it doesn't answer all your questions, but I want you to know that.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you. Go ahead.
Now, I was just going to say, I want you to know that our health department staff are very prepared. And when a child walks into the clinic and they have certain symptoms, they know, they're going to know what to do to handle those symptoms. They're either strongly symptomatic of maybe COVID, and they're going to be put aside like we would with any child that's throwing up, has a fever. They're going to be semi-isolated. Make the decision, do we put a mask on the healthcare worker, or do we put it on the child? Call the parent, they come get them. Like any sick child, they should probably see a doctor for evaluation. Doctor decides yes or no to test. Most are going to test just to be careful because they can. And we'll go from there.
I would like your opinion, and this is not to get anybody fired up or anything like that, because I believe y'all know what you're doing, and I believe we are prepared, and I believe we are ready. My question is this: if you were the parent of a child going back to school, would you send your child back to school?
Absolutely.
And would you mask the child? What would you do? What would you do as a parent? And I'm asking this
I would talk to
for
my
parents to hear
Yeah,
this.
I would talk to my child about the importance of hygiene, hand washing, about being careful in groups around anybody who's sick. Try to stay away from them, or if you're not feeling good, please tell your parent so they can deal with it, decide whether you should go to school or not. It's those kind of things. I think teachers our educators. They need to be talking to kids about this whole situation. I think parents need to know exactly how we're going to react if there is a positive, what's going to happen if a teacher is positive. Just like you want to know, parents should know as well. The more information you can give them, the better they are. Yes, I would send my child back unless they had, a serious health condition that would put them at great risk.
And what would something like that be?
Heart condition, immunotherapy, they're on immunotherapy,
Something that weakens them.
chronic, something really that if they,
No dialysis.
yeah, that's a biggie.
Perfect.
Asthma.
I want to go ahead and publicly say thank you for coming and
You're
sharing this with me.
welcome.
This is exactly what I wanted. These are not educators. These are healthcare professionals telling us and telling the public, child's going to be okay. This is what to do. This is the plan. This is not just, and it's no knock. It's no knock on the answer if we're going to defer to the health department. This is the health department giving us the answer. And
you'll
I
be
want
surprised how many kids will wear a mask.
people
The
to
first
hear
day.
that. And so I appreciate y'all coming.
Well, it depends on if they're taught to wear it, and they're expected to wear it, just the same as any child is given any kind of directions. The more it's reinforced, the more they'll do it.
Thanks.
That's kind of my question. I'm sending all three of mine back traditional. We've had workshops, we've had board meetings, and I'm not worried about those healthy kids. Like you said, they're mostly asymptomatic. I'm worried about the teachers and the staff and that age group. And I do have mixed feelings, but I'm trying to teach mine, put it on for the other person. Do it for the other person, not you. I just tested negative. I have my mask, so I'm not being negligent here, but
Hard to talk with.
I can breathe. And it is hard. So my question, I guess, is what if we did mandate a mask? Is it effective if we mandate in the hall, like until you get to your seat? Like, you know what I mean? Once you get to your seat, you can take it off, you can breathe, do the best we can. Is that even effective? Is it?
I don't know. I mean, there's so much controversy about masks and, let's face it, kids are like
I know.
adults. Pretty soon it's going to be under their nose and then under their chin, on top of their head and on their,
But if they're closer together, if they will wear it, it's
I
better.
know.
It's better.
if you cannot maintain the social distancing, the 6 foot, then, maybe the mask is the best thing. But to mandate it in school, you can mandate it, but who's going to enforce it? Who's going to monitor it?
Punish
I
if
mean,
you don't,
teachers
right.
cannot do that.
Right.
And I mean, there are people that just cannot, little children can't wear masks. I mean,
And that's the best way for the teachers to protect themselves, is that they will wear the mask, because they're protecting themselves.
And have we had any students or children reported that are in daycares with symptoms or?
we've had
Yes.
3 daycares with cases. Amazing to me that there haven't been more. You think about young, pre-K. And actually, it's the adults that gave it to their child who's in the daycare. And luckily, it's been 3 different daycares and we haven't had a major outbreak. Not to say other counties haven't. It can happen. The other thing I'll say is it's not what you're going to get at school. It's what people do after work that gets them in trouble. It's going on family outings or groups of friends going places. It's all that other stuff you do on weekends where 20 people gather together in the middle of the river and back and forth. It's all those things that we do in leisure time that causes the problem. It's not kids giving it to teachers or teachers getting it from kids, whatever. It's what these people do after work that brings the
vehicle is the worst place.
Yes, we did find that. We had a group that one person was sick, and eventually all 5 other people that rode in that vehicle got sick.
That's the worst thing you can do, is being in a closed space for a length of time with somebody who's positive. It's the worst thing you can ever do. So think twice before you go on a long trip with somebody in it.
Even with your best friend. I mean, we've had healthcare workers that go to work they wear all the appropriate PPE while they're at work, they get out of work and they go get in the car with their best friend and ride home.
And go to the nearest place in
And so-
Gainesville and celebrate.
And so then that, therein lies your problem.
Oh. Anyway, were you finished with this one? Okay.
Did that help? Yeah. Mal?
Obviously,
Not-
firsthand, so everybody at the health department has been first class and very professional, appreciate everything. So through the time and going through this process, so myself personally. So mentioning about the car, so does that make sense that we should do something on the bus where we should say students on the bus should be in a mask?
Some of the other districts are doing that. They're requesting that they ride them on buses because you can't get 6 feet apart on a bus.
Pretty hard.
It's,
What, have you made a decision about buses?
We have,
It's still strongly recommended, but we're trying to do different things to make sure that they sit as family units, windows, they get some fresh air.
Yeah, that does help.
And we're going to be trying to determine how many kids are going to be riding the bus. Because we greatly anticipate there's not going to be as many as normal.
because some of the parents are going to be dropping their children off at school.
Well, the
And we
other,
encourage that.
we know that children, maybe they even said, some of the experts are saying that children under 10 do not transmit quite as effectively as older kids. You have to do what's reasonable and,
Right.
and, again, you have to weigh all the pros and cons and the benefits and risks. And that's the best you can do.
Just want to say this about the health department. They've been great partners in education for a very long time. I wasn't here at the time, but I do remember when HIV first became an issue.
And me
And
too.
the health department and what they did, and you will talk about some fear and anxiety in our schools at some time. And it certainly wasn't to the level that we are right now. So they are, but I would encourage the board though, as we go into our legislative season, one of the things that's not funded is having a nurse in every school. And I would highly encourage, that I think this might be the time where that's right. I assume we can find a nurse to put in a school.
Yeah, that's-
It's just like finding a police officer and a teacher.
Right.
But that is a mandate, first of all, that really the burden comes on the school district a lot of times, or the health department. And that is something that I can promise you our parents would love to have, and I think it's the best thing for our kids. And so that might be something we consider as a legislative item that we can work on.
Yeah, the more we can lobby for a nurse in every school. I mean, because as this happens, and the health support techs are the ones that are in the clinics, and they're going to be calling us, asking for further direction, and we're going to have to do part of that by phone because we're at another site. We can't run back and forth from site to site. We do the best we can with them being our eyes and ears and telling us exactly what's going on.
And our health techs, they do a great job,
They do.
but we have some medically fragile students in every one of our schools. And it is important for we have to teach every kid. And it's important that we have to serve every kid.
One of the best things that ever happened was putting the nurse in the medically complex classroom.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I would worry about those children. Are they coming back?
Yes.
All three of them are coming.
I was gonna say, we had a mama who was here last board meeting last week, so.
Okay.
So those decisions are driven by their IEP.
Right, yes.
Might be a good time to look into the CARES money. I don't know if school boards got funded for CARES Act money, but the county certainly did. And at some point, once they took care of the businesses, the next 75%, I understand, might be open to requests. So,
That will be coming out of the county's part.
yeah, but they get reimbursed, sort of. Yeah. But it is a lot of money each county got.
Because we didn't get that much money.
Now, I think that all went to the counties, but doesn't preclude us or the school board to ask for support for, it might be that if we come down, that we do need more PPE, maybe more sanitizer, more those kinds of things that, and that's what the money is supposed to be for, is to support COVID activities. So be thinking about that. Maybe,
There's several federal funds that we
yeah,
work for
there are.
that purpose.
It's quite a bit of money, actually.
Mr. Delaney?
If I may, thank you,
Yes.
Madam Chair. I just wanted to be clear on the definition of a contact for quarantine purposes. And I have heard from other health departments around the state, and I don't know if there is a general consensus or if it's evolving, but I've been told that a contact is greater than 15 minutes, less than 6 feet apart, without a mask. Is that still the definition that we are working off of?
Correct.
Okay, and if you have to have all three of those elements for it to count as a contact for quarantine purposes.
But then other factors fall into that. It's like if you're in a classroom, a small classroom with a large group of children that are moving around, it almost becomes like a home situation.
Okay,
And it's much more easily spread that way because of the close interaction and contact. So every case has to be looked at differently.
okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
that assumes the teacher stands right up front, never moves, and every kid sits in a chair, seat, never moves, which
And
might
we
be
don't
true
take
in
that
high
out.
school, but I don't know about
Yeah, but
elementary.
that is what
Okay.
we use as a definition.
Thank you.
And sometimes it is hard to figure that out. I mean, there's going to be all kinds of variables like, oh, well, this student they sat in the back of the room, they're 10 feet away, they never moved. Why do they have to be excluded? My child never moved and had the mask on the whole time. It's a judgment call, to be honest, in many cases. So I think there's going to be more to come with contacts in classrooms and all of that as we move on.
But our nurses, the school nurses, got a whole lot of, all summer, they did contact tracing at the health department. So we got very good at chasing down people and who their contacts were and know what we're looking for and questions to ask to get the right information. So they're up where they need to be and what they need to do and are ready to start a new school year.
Take on the challenge.
Yeah, take on the challenge.
Feel free to call us if you have questions or contact Jeannie.
Thank
Jeannie is unfortunately retiring, but
Yes.
Wow.
But we have hired my replacement, Angie Phillips, and so she will be taking my place on September 10th.
and she's also been around doing school health a long time. But we have several people at the health department that have all the information, and hopefully we can help you make
And
some
we
of
have an
this.
epidemiologist there that we can always call and ask for his opinion, his questions, and he'll help work us through all of that.
Thank you very much for presenting to us.
You're
Great
welcome.
information.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Very much.
Ms. Jeannie, thank you for getting me that information. So on the positive rate, thank you.
Yes.
Great information. Item D, our public hearing, Ms. Light.
All right, good evening.
How are you?
Okay. I would like to say my presentation is going to be better than that one, but I'm not sure because both leave you a little nervous. All right. So we're here this afternoon to present the tentative millage rate and tentative budget. At the end of our conversation, we'll hopefully have adopted a tentative millage rate and adopted a tentative budget for this fiscal year 2021. This is the first of our 2 public hearings on this subject, and this means any member in the public attending these meetings are welcome to comment or ask questions throughout this process. This is our budget timeline. You have a typo in your presentation. Our final millage and budget is going to be 9/10/2020. We don't have to go back to last year as much as we'd probably like to. Oh, the good old years. All right. So trim, truth, and millage is the first thing we're going to discuss as we settle on and adopt the tentative millage rate for this fiscal year. The tentative rate that's being proposed is 3.739. So you should all have a copy of this. This is a copy of our certified taxable value, which is on line 4. If you look at line 16, that is our RLE, or required local effort, 3.739. This number is set by the Florida Department of Education to match our prior year tax collections. You'll notice that our RLE is lower this year when compared to prior year, which is on line 9, but it's higher than that of line 14, which is the rollback rate. So we had to advertise for a tax increase. The rollback rate is the rate that would generate the same amount of property tax revenues as approved for the prior year. When the tax base increases like this year, the rollback rate is less than the prior year's rate. And all this means is that the tax values have increased. So with this RLE, we will receive more in local taxes when compared to last year, but the local tax rate did not increase.
So in other words, to make sure we get this correct, our tax rate has decreased, but because the rate generates more funds, we have to advertise an increase.
Our RLE decreased, not our tax rate, but our RLE decreased, correct. All right, so roughly, and I think I have this somewhere in here, it's gonna roughly bring us, I think it's a net increase of around 630,000, but you'll see as we get into the state turns around and just reduces their portion. So we're not actually seeing new money for $600,000. We still have to match the state reduced theirs, and we're actually at a loss. Does anybody have any questions? If not, we need to approve the tentative millage rate.
Move approval of the tentative millage as follows and adopt the tentative millage resolution 20-01 of a required local effort of 3.739, a basic discretionary operating of 0.748, and a capital outlay of 1.5 for a total millage of 5.987.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Right, as we discuss the tentative budget, keep in mind with the enormous amount of uncertainty we see swirling across the state, this would be a very bad time to adopt a budget that adds any new expenses beyond those required by law. We have tried to create a budget that can withstand the probable reduction in funding that's likely to accompany the reduction in state revenues, and to protect jobs to avoid increasing unemployment in the Florida economy. However, we are sure this will take some reserves to accomplish. While I have budgeted to maintain at least a 5% financial condition ratio as mandated by board policy. How much of our reserves is going to be needed is yet to be determined, and any further cuts at this point are yet to be determined. As such, given the rapidly plunging collections of the general revenue and the continuing impacts of COVID-19 in Florida, we are following the advice that we do not add any new unencumbered revenue to the district's unassigned operating budget fund balance until it is determined that there will not be a cut in funding for the district. We've heard that the governor and legislative leaders state that there are enough general revenue reserves to operate the state until the November elections, but not one leader has stated that there will not be a special session of the legislature to cut the budget after the November elections. So we're facing a huge mid-year budget cut in two ways: proration and reduced FTE or enrollment. Proration is when the state reduces our budget to keep the state budget balanced as written in the Constitution, so not necessarily because we've had a reduction in enrollment. We think this is a real possibility due to the anticipated loss in sales tax revenues to the state. Another way we lose funding is when we have a reduction in FTE or enrollment when compared to our forecast. So keep in mind, we forecasted our FTE in January, so it does not accurately reflect any impact from COVID. Also keep in mind to transportation, as we talk about buses, we lose considerable amount of funding when students don't ride the bus as well. So all of these are great concerns to our district, but it brings me to a few other concerns that we discussed last week, but I think it bears repeating. Another huge concern are the family empowerment scholarships. We lost over $250,000 in funding last year, and we were told to double that loss for this year. We're reminded that there will be about 29,000 more family empowerment vouchers authorized for this year, 2021. And as such, it's suggested that when we were planning this budget, that we increase the use of these vouchers, plan for the increased use of these vouchers. So remember, the funds associated with these students are included in our FEFP revenue, but it just flows in and out of the district, and we do not get to keep any of those dollars for district expenses. This budget includes a loss of over $987,000 between McKay and family empowerment scholarships.
So when you say they said to plan on doubling that, can you elaborate on that a little bit on what that means?
I don't know the statute well enough to repeat it, but in essence, it's written that if they underutilize the voucher, the state releases more vouchers and also reduces the minimum income needed, maximum income to qualify. So,
So they raised the family median income, so it would take in more families to be
Correct.
able to use that.
and they release more
And they
vouchers.
release more state funding that goes into that pot,
Correct.
thus reducing dollars that come into Levy County is what you're telling me.
If someone from, a student from Levy County uses family empowerment, correct.
Right.
So
Or actually, they come into Levy County, but then they
flow right back out.
right out.
So what you'll see is in my budget, the number I am showing on the revenue side includes this revenue. I have to do an equal matching expenditure on the expenditure side, estimating what loss we're going to see in January, because the money flows in until January, until December, when we do our third count.
Same with McKay.
Correct. Although I think 250,000 was a lot, considering McKay has declined. We're at about 450,000 with that, but we're going to see family empowerment, which has less restrictions, increase.
I do want to bring one point you asked about at the last meeting. We talked about where we are with kids coming and stuff. I'm going to look at this two different ways. Okay, we have right now, the predictions are 72% of our kids return to brick and mortar.
Right.
19% option 2, and 8% option 3, which is full-time virtual. Okay, 1% not returning. But turn it around, we still have 21% of our kids unaccounted for. So we don't know where they're going or if they're coming.
And we were last week, what, 72% is where we were at, so we've come
Yes.
down another 7%, so kudos to our
Now,
staff.
this budget doesn't necessarily take into consideration the loss right now in FTE, because the way the budget works, you have to show equal revenues and expenditures. We haven't reduced expenditures, so on that side, we're not utilizing as much as the revenues as we're having to recognize, if that makes sense. But those are contingency plans that we are working with the superintendent on.
I know EDR came out with their revised revenue, and knowing that where the state was with their budget reserves, and I've heard several of our wonderful legislators have mentioned how frugal and conservative that they were in building their budget, and that's the reason why they didn't see any need to come back for a special session, so.
Well, so if you have two different losses in revenue, those each require a different reaction. So a loss in FTE enrollment is a different reaction, not necessarily, but could be, than just a loss in proration. Proration with the same student set is one thing. Proration and a loss in FTE and enrollment's another thing. So we also have to kind of see who we have coming through the door, how much of that revenue or that FTE we're able to get funding on, because it's not a one-to-one. So another issue that we're facing this year is a very large increase in FRS, so Florida retirement. It's increased by 1.5%. So one way to talk about this increase is we would have needed a base student allocation increase of $75 per student. That's not what we got. What we're looking at is a $24 deficit now per student. So this is a net loss. And in a normal year, this could have been devastating, and this is not a normal year. So this is just another issue we have to face. I am currently estimating close to a 14% financial condition ratio. I did not break that all down for this presentation because I think it would serve the board better for me to work in real numbers. but I can tell you that I'm estimating close to a 14% financial condition ratio for the end of 1920. I'll have that finalized when we adopt our final budget on September 10th. And at that time, I'll also hopefully have a better assessment of possibly where we'll end in 2021 based on information we're receiving at that time. Every time the state has a different conference, we get new information. So these assessments or budgets are only as good as the information we're receiving from current state projections. And this is why the budget numbers will change regularly and why the budget is a process and not a document. So now let's review the information I provided at the last board meeting in terms of this tentative budget. So this is a breakdown of the revenue sources. The first subtotal, 282.5, those are federal dollars. The second subtotal of 34.5, almost 34.6, those are state revenues, and they include that $968,000 that we are estimating to lose to McKay and FES. The $11,000 are local, and then the last two are transfers and then some insurance recoveries. So 97% of our revenues come from state and local sources, with a third of that coming from state sources alone.
You say that again.
97% of our revenues come from state and local sources, so those second and third totals, but a third of that is just state revenue. So we are very reactive to any change in state dollars because we're heavily dependent on them.
It's like, so the total revenue from 2020, 2021 is up almost 1.4 million.
Mm-hmm.
But the 900,000 you said is reflected.
Correct. No, it's not. I'm sorry. No, it's not. That's why I have the net in the yellow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
but
that,
almost 1.2 million of that's transfers,
yes.
which is our reserves.
No. So the transfers are where we take money by statute. We can move money from capital dollars to pay our debt service, but it flows through the general fund as a revenue. The same where we can transfer money from capital dollars to the general fund to cover some maintenance expenditures. And then also built in that transfer is charter schools. So the money comes in and we have to transfer it out. It's charter school capital. We have to transfer it out. So that's more of an accounting thing, but some of that is true revenue that we utilize.
So that includes our cops in that figure?
Yes, no, no, because we can pay that directly. That just includes the railroad.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So these are the general fund expenditures by object. I think it's a little bit easier to see when we look at it this way. So 75% of our expenditures are just for salaries and benefits alone. 14% for purchase services or contracted services. 5% for materials and supplies. 3% for utilities. 2% for other services, which are dues and fees, and I believe subs might be hitting in that. And then 1% for capital outlay. This is not the capital outlay I was talking about earlier. That's the fund capital outlay. We do have some capital outlay expenditures that don't qualify to be paid for out of the capital fund, so they have to flow through the general fund. So these are those same expenditures you just looked at by object. This is them by function. So 56% of our expenditures go to direct instruction, classroom teachers, ESE teachers. Those are all of your direct student instruction. 28% is general support services. So this would include all these school administrators, school board, superintendent, support staff, transportation, custodians, groundskeepers. They're all in that little chunk there. Student and instructional support at 8%. Those are your guidance counselors, mental health workers, social workers, speech and language. The 3% to instructional services, those are your reading coaches, some ESOL services we have in there, teacher training, PD. Maintenance of plant is what it is. It's Breezy's department. And then administrative technology services, those would be your higher level MIS IT functions. Does anybody have any questions about that general fund before we move on?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
When you said that you think it's recommended that there would be no increase to the budget, did we leave any monies or raises to salaries for our educators and staff?
The only the only thing in here is state required raises. So that would be what is flowing through as the teacher salary increase. We do not budget for raises. As you know, we negotiate those using the fund balance. And at this time, that's where that fund balance is critical. And so I want to make sure I have the right fund balance. Yes, ma'am.
Quick question for you.
Okay.
On proration. When would that happen?
That would happen in December. We lost $80,000 last year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but we did lose $80,000 last year to proration. And that comes in December, and that comes after the third count when the state sees how much they have been paying on estimated enrollment or FTE compared to actual or any change in their revenues or funding.
Gotcha.
If we're starting less kids, or the state starting less kids, they never give us more money.
Right.
They only take it away, but they never give it.
Because you take your crystal ball a year and a half ago to say what our FTE is going to be. Back in 18, we said what our FTE is going to be for 2021.
In 19, or I'm sorry, we did that in did we do that in January? But this year is just so different because we could not have known in January what was going to happen. Now, I will say the state is holding us harmless at this point. So what this is going to look like is you're getting your level of funding that you need to support your school district, and then all of a sudden it's going to be gone in January. And so it's going to be a cash flow issue if we're not managing our fund balance like we should.
Really, the way I see it is the two issues. You got your FTE and you got your proration. If the state budgets continues to do like this, and they don't get any revenue, they can come back and say, hey, we want to take some revenue from all the school systems, and that will be the proration they're talking about her after November. Okay? Or they may let the February FTE adjust itself, because they're only going to pay you for what kids you have.
Right.
So if your FTE goes in the tank, they're going to hold you harmless at the October FTE. They're not going to hold you harmless in February FTE.
Right, which you bring up a good point. We're looking at 2021, but this impact is going to go beyond 2021. This is, I imagine, will heavily impact 21, 22.
And because not just like every district from Key West to Pensacola always says, guess what? We're going to continue with the same levels of service, even though you gave us less money because of what's doing right by kids. We're not going to not do something, I mean, and that's the unfortunate thing that you never want to get to the point where, but it's getting closer and closer to the cliff as I get up on my soapbox here. So of understanding that year after year, we go through this process, something unfunded mandate comes to us, do this, do that, and every time we rise to the challenge and do it with less dollars or with dollars that are restricted, so then we have to take and borrow from Peter to pay Paul. So enough of that. I'm sorry.
So this is our food service budget. This is the one bright light. It continues to pay for itself. So much so this year that we are hoping to actually do a transfer to the general fund, a reverse. But I say that cautiously because we don't know the impact of food service over the school year. It just so happened that when COVID came in, we started getting some pretty good funding for those foods that she was giving out. So she's managed to maintain her budget, grow her budget, but she has a cap on how much of reserve she can have in her budget. So she does have some planned expenditures that were supposed to take place this year that have been pushed a year. And again, we are looking into moving some of those funds to the general fund. Now they will be assigned to food service. They won't be unassigned because they should be there to prop her back up should she see a decrease in funding too. All right, this is our federal budgets. They are always in and out. This is one thing that is definitely going to change for the final budget because we just don't have all the information in our system yet. CARES still needs to be adopted, and so this budget will change, but it is always, we collect as much as we spend, and that's the way the federal budgets work. These are our debt service payments. So we pay a little over 666, almost 667,000 a year for our cops. And then we pay 211, almost 212 for our racetrack. These are our capital projects. So this is a different fund. This reflects the newspaper ad that we'll get to in a minute, where we have to let the public know how we're going to spend these dollars. If it's not on that ad, I can't spend the monies unless I come back before the board and the public and get approval. There are other restrictions. It has to rise to a certain level to actually be a capital expenditure. So that's why you see some of those expenses on the general fund, because they just don't meet the qualifications for capital. This year, this budget shows 12.4 million for special facilities. I will tell you, it's my first year doing this, so this could change too. If I've reflected it incorrectly in this budget, I'll have to tweak that because I wasn't quite sure what to do. But I have a revenue coming in of 12.4 and I have an expenditure going out of 12.4. This is our internal service, our self-insurance. So you see the revenues, you see the expenditures. We like a healthy balance here. If we have a healthy fund balance, hopefully that can mitigate any large increases. We do have 100,000 budgeted for permanent transfer, as the board has had to do several years in a row, but we've avoided it the last 2 years. So this is that school capital outlay ad as it was advertised in the paper with the projects that we will be funding with our 1.5 mil. And this is why we can pay Mr. Cowart directly from capital for our COPS, because we actually list the COPS in the ad.
Thank you.
This is our budget summary ad. So this is just all those funds that I went through, the general fund, special revenue, which would be your your federal budgets and your food services one, debt service, capital, and internal service. So you've already approved the millage rate of 3.739 for a total millage of 5.987 and the budget total of roughly 96.3 million. Again, this was what was advertised in the newspaper for the purpose of this public hearing. Are there any questions before we hear a motion to adopt?
Just one. So you said we basically budgeted for a 14% financial condition ratio. Okay.
We didn't budget, but that's where I think we're going to end at the end of this year. I'm sorry, for last year. So for 18-19, I think got my years all mixed up. 19-20 going into 2021, I'm expecting somewhere around a 14% financial condition ratio.
And we have no, okay, just a point, I think, but as we look at budget, it's a shot in the dark. It could be, numbers could be dramatically different come the first of next year. And there's not any doubt that the numbers will be different within the next couple of years. But there's no way for the state of Florida to come through this without a way, I don't believe. So the conservative approach that you brought forward, I think, is imperative from a board member. And second of all, I just, it's like every other business, 75 to 80% of this is personnel. And the last thing you ever want anything to do, if we don't conservatively approach this, the last thing we ever want to do is have to go to that number to make the budget work. So I appreciate the conservative approach.
I echo those comments. We've been very, very fortunate in this board that there's been a lot of hard work by our finance officers to get us through rough patches before. And I appreciate you keeping us going on that path to get us through the rough patch that we're in. I motion to approve the tentative budget and adopt the resolution 21-02 to adopt the tentative budget.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Yes.
How much is the tentative budget? It's hard to read it.
A little over 96 million. That includes all funds. So,
And the special facilities.
right, that includes all funds.
96,286, 990 cents.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Lake.
Thank you.
Very good presentation. Item E, our Levy County video presentation. Ms. Wade.
I closed down here. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna take this off so I can talk.
Well, how about we talk about something fun? Does that sound like a good idea? Okay.
That's what we want to do, something fun.
Sounds good to me. All right. So when we have come before you in strategic plan, we have talked about public relations. We talked about a video. It is finished. It is ready to go. So I'm very excited. I'm not sure when this process started, but probably almost a year ago, Mr. Edison brought forth a video from Putnam County to our team and wanted something similar. I think ours is better. So
This became part of our strategic plan.
yes. And so I wanted to thank him for this idea because we all know Levy County is the best place to live and work.
That's right.
So we just need the rest of the world to know that. And so I believe this video shows the best of Levy County.
Well, I haven't seen it.
We partnered, the health department's gone. We partnered with some groups to finance the video. The school board was the major contributor. Next was the Levy County Tourism Bureau. Tisha Whitehurst is phenomenal. She came on board, was very excited, jumped right in. County commissioners have joined in, Nutrico's Development Council, and our school foundation. So when we started this, our whole goal was to attract educators to Levy County because it's hard to find teachers that want to come to a small rural district. But in saying that, we needed families to come to Levy County too. And I believe this does that. So I'm going to do that. And then after we get done, let's see what happened to sorry, hold on one second. After we do that, then I'm going to thank a couple people for this. The first video, this is a 2-minute video, and then there is a 45-second video. But this is the 2-minute one is the better one.
When I was in grade school, my family vacationed in Central Florida. We spent many summers in Levy County. I loved Cedar Key's charming shops and art galleries and watching the dramatic sunsets. Cooling off in Ante Springs on a hot July day, cruising down the Swanee River with the wind in my hair, and simply gazing into the wide open spaces. Feeling like I was in a world of my own. Levy County made such an impression on me. So much so, my husband and I relocated here, so our kids can have the same experiences I had growing up. We love Levy County. There's such a focus on community, family, and enjoying where you live. Each town has its own personality, from Bronson to Williston to Yankeetown to Chiefland to Cedar Key. There's something for everyone to explore. And the school sizes are smaller compared to urban areas. And the kids have leadership and extracurricular opportunities that are not available in larger districts. Local businesses and churches are extremely engaged with the education system too, supporting a variety of school programs and events. There are numerous and diverse family-run businesses providing job opportunities. Agriculture further diversifies a growing economy, with school programs guaranteeing the next generation is ready to step right in. And let's not forget the people, the smiling, easygoing, always willing to help, and genuinely friendly people. Levy County provides everything my family needs. A That's why we live here, work here, learn here, and play here all year round. It's where we want to be now and for many years to come. To learn more about Levy County, visit naturecoast.com.
It was, yeah. I had to get, so I wanted to thank a couple people because I had to call on some friends for some video footage. First is Todd and Brandy Horn. They let us use their river place on the Swanee, and Todd drove the boat with the little girl. Red, White, and Blue Farms, you saw many. It was just beautiful out there. That's where the car started. That's where we played a lot of scenes. CAAA and Chiefland, the ball field, they actually, when we were shooting, they actually had a ball game going on. So it couldn't have been more perfect. Karen Stevenson from Cedar Key, she donated the bags and the scenery down in Cedar Key. Sash Farms, they let us use our hay bales to jump, which was very cute. First United Methodist Church and their pastor, Danny Bennett, that was our scene, our church scene. And he graciously jumped in there and did that with us. Matthew Detloff at Chiefland Middle High School, he brought his kids in. And so we did all this in the middle of COVID, in the middle of summer. He just made one phone call. The kids were there. They were excited. They were wonderful. The school's foundation, as you saw, they were in the scene. Annie Whitehurst, and she had her board members there. Monterey Boats, they were there in the scene. And Ancorp, he actually had a scene from a previous video that he was able to use for those. Williston FFA, we borrowed a scene from when Carol did a CD video. And of course, Carol Jones, Marla Hires, and Natalie Warren, and Jeff and Chris. This has been a long project, but I think it's going to do some great things. Mark Rice from Digital Fury is the one that produced the video. He was phenomenal. He was very easygoing, relaxed. Just as soon as we met with him, he knew what our vision was and just ran with it. So anyway, Tisha Whitehurst is going to present this to the County Commission on the 18th. She's already put it on her website, and after tonight, it's going to go on the school board website, district Facebook page, and I'm just going to ask everybody and anybody to share it. Tisha is part of a media group that's going to put it out nationally. Sometimes if you're on Facebook, you see those sponsorships, so it will get out nationally.
That is
It's
great.
not gonna be the same once everybody figures out what we have.
Well, I know.
Everybody's gonna come.
It's going to be worth it. You know, we started social distancing long before it was cool. So anyway, any questions?
That was a great presentation.
I don't have
That's great.
questions, but I just want to say Kaylee has kind of drug our group. So sometimes it seems kicking and screaming. But really did a good job leading our group for our strategic plan. And this is from the Public Relations Committee, and she and Carol really had a vision for this and kind of helped get this across the finish line. So I appreciate you. Appreciate all your hard work.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. All right, item F, our 2021 threat assessment policies and procedure. Mr. Weber and Mr. Gore.
Good evening, board members and our superintendent. I will probably include Adam, and I'll explain that, okay? He's going to be taking the position at the end of November. This report was done June the 3rd, so this is brand new for him, and I'll try to cover a lot of this for us this evening. You should have in your hands, if you like, you'll see, first of all, the letter that has been approved from Damian Kelly, sent back to us on the 20th of July, stating that everything that we had done, which will be this particular packet document, has been approved. I'm going to highlight some of those for you so that you can kind of be on top of the areas that we've covered. Let me mention to board members that, and I'm going to focus in on this last piece. It kind of summarizes everything. The threat assessment procedures have really made a difference in all 9 of our public schools and the 2 charter schools. For example, we saw in the past year, Baker Acts went down because we were putting together the threat assessment program. Also want to just mention Dr. Hall and Ms. Ward were very influential in helping us put together the threat assessment manual. So when you look at this document that was sent to Safe Schools, everything in this document comes out of this manual, okay? All schools have the threat assessment manual. Administrators have access, guidance counselors, etc. So let me just highlight briefly, and then any questions that you might have. As you'll see on the very first page of the handout, where I've kind of highlighted my notes, all of our schools have threat assessment teams. All of our schools have Ssros, and they're actively involved with the threat assessment program. So they're informed right there at the table. Number 4, you'll notice evaluations are done to determine if the threat is a transient threat. Transient threat, in a real quick word, is basically someone's really running their mouth, but they don't have a game plan. They're not going to do anything about that. That's a transient threat. Now, the substantive threat is where they aren't just saying it, they actually have a plan and they're going to carry that out. That's where we have to make those decisions in threat assessment meetings, okay? How do we respond to a substantive threat? You'll see some bullet points that I put in there. We want to notify law enforcement. We want to include safety, security specialist. That would be Coach Gore. He'll be handling that when December rolls in. He'll be working with me on this process during August, September, October, etc. We also include individuals like Dr. Pratt. She's involved, guidance counselors involved. All decisions, if you'll note, all decisions are based on the code of conduct. So we're not just like flying by the seat of our pants. We will follow what the code of conduct is. If it is a serious substantive threat, you see those bullet points that we make. And one of the things that I want to mention, the threat assessment program comes from Dr. Dewey Cornell from Virginia Tech. And the objective is not to see students out of school, but can we relocate them on campus, for example, the FOCUS program or LLA, so that they are getting their academic piece, even though they may not be in the general population. Let's see, number 8, mental health trainings and services. We have been training. Almost everyone has completed youth mental health first aid training. We also want to include all of our aides, all of our subs in that program so that they're up to date, up to speed. And again, Dr. Hall, you've done a great job helping us put that together and working that through each of our schools. Reporting procedures, this is really big. Senate Bill 7026 and 7030. Out of those two bills, board members, it is now a state law where if a student is transferring into Levy County, all of the documents, all of their academic behavior, etc., all of that has to come to us so that we know exactly who's coming in. Same thing, anyone going out of Levy County, we have to be willing to transfer all the information.
Is that electronically?
Yeah.
Is there a time frame that has to be reported?
Wow.
Transcripts are required to be reported within 24, 48 hours.
Okay.
So it's on us to request it. Okay.
What about the behavioral?
Yes.
Does that have to come on? Transcript of the whole thing?
The whole thing.
Whole thing,
Yes, that
not
comes,
just-
that whole package comes,
The whole thing.
correct. Huh?
So just on that,
Sure.
okay, so we get it. Who's in charge of monitoring it within our district? Who monitors if there's a problem coming?
Excellent. It can come through, there's two places. It can come through Morgan. If he's got information, he's going to share, and it's going to rest in there on the specialist position. And then we're going to be in communication with all of the administrators on campus. Anything? Go ahead.
I'll just say, we have all of our school administrators set up to receive automated emails anytime a student enrolls in the district. So that's their heads up.
They're the one that has to throw the red flag for an alert to set the system in place.
Very often, though, if there's an issue, the state school officer from that county, call him.
Well, that was going to be my next question.
Yes.
You guys talk county to county that way,
Yes.
so good.
when we go back, because we're talking about COVID now, and a year ago, we were talking all about this, and yes, you always get that conversation. We never thought that kid was gonna do that. So I just will make sure that we had our stuff in place, we don't have falling through the cracks is all I was.
And I really
It sounds like
appreciate,
we got it, sounds like we got it under control.
yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that up. One of the things that we're doing, and that would include Coach Gore and myself, we're going this week and perhaps a little bit next week. We started with Chief of Middle High School this morning, and we did an entire presentation on safety and security, on threat assessment. We covered all those bases so that everybody's kind of up to speed, okay? Number 10, threat assessment teams. Who makes those positions? Who fills those? Administration, safety specialist, classroom teacher of that student, guidance counselor, SRO. Of course, we will include parents and the student, okay?
Are they the group that decides whether it's transient or?
Correct. And let me also mention, their voice is to be heard, but a lot of times it's going to lean in on Coach Gore or myself over the last couple of years, because they're going to look to us, you know, since you've been trained, you have the information, what do you think the best decision would be? Okay?
Obviously, minus the parent student in that decision. More of a team of the guidance, SRO, administration specialist.
Gotcha. Okay. Notice, if you will, number 12, the faculty staff members, along with all administrators in the 9 public schools and the 2 charter schools, were in alignment with the Safe School Act 9805, which requires that we follow safe school requirements. We have followed that. That's why this was approved. And then Damian Kelly sent us the letter saying we're good to go. A lot of background work that we had to take care of. Number 13, behavioral health crisis teams, trainings in crisis intervention, emergency intervention. We have Meridian that's there and available. We have the individuals like Dr. Pratt, who's also helping and assisting. So all those pieces of the puzzle are in place as we prepare for the new school year. I would mention, we're almost finished here. I mentioned to Mr. Edison, I had a call from Trent Wolf from Safe Schools. He is our director in our region, and he said, please inform all administrators that we need to be ready for the unexpected because of what has taken place since March, and we need to have all of our threat assessment teams ready to go and expect the unexpected. So we're working diligently to be on point for the needs of students.
Just to inform the board, last Thursday, July 30th, Dr. Hall hosted a training that included the trauma-informed care and also the mental health aspects for our school.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to kind of pause right there, see if there's any comments, any questions that you might have. I'm just really grateful for the hard work that we did perhaps a year, 2 years ago on the manual, because this was our resource when we put everything together that had to go to Damian Kelly and Safe Schools. So we're on point there, and we're ready for the new school year. Any questions or comments, concerns that you might have?
I just want to say, of all the worries that we have right now, safety is all still my number one. And every time I hear you speak, I have 2 boys at Williston, and I just have a sense of, we're doing the best we can, and we're in very good hands with you. I always have a good feeling after you speak. So thank you for everything that you do for all of our kids.
Hey, it's really a team effort. Let me also just mention, because I see him sitting back there kind of like hiding. Breezy has done a phenomenal job, board members. It has been incredible to work with him and his team. I'm talking about the fencing and gates and all that. He has done an amazing job, and I think we got to really extend those credit lines out, going, you know what, let's recognize. So Breeze, I really appreciate it, because we've come a long way in these last 3 years. In fact, in talking with other districts, we're not saying we're way out in front, but where we are, there's a lot of playing catch up, and we're not doing that. So really proud of each one that's been a part of this process. Thank you.
And all our schools are secure. And
Yes.
Great. It's fabulous. Thank you very, very much.
Is that it?
Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Weber.
Does that require action?
Is that just information?
Right, yes. Okay, item H, Dr. Hall.
Skip over to school.
Gee, I did skip again. I'm blind today. What in the world? School reopening plans. Ms. Lewis, are you online with us? By remote? She is. Ms. Lewis? Okay.
So I believe the board members have a copy of the school reopening plan
Yes.
that was presented and submitted to the state of Florida. This was what was required by the executive order in early July. And quite frankly, a large portion of it had already been completed by the district based on some of the work that the schools had done on their individual school reopening plans that we were able to incorporate into this. Also, a lot of the work that went into the parent survey, the 3 options, it was submitted to Levy, and it has been, with only a couple very minor edits, it has not improved the population. So this is one of the vehicles that will allow us to maintain equal funding to survey 3 in February from last year, for survey 2 in October. It details a lot of the safety plans and options for parents between instruction. It requires us to confirm 7 assurances in terms of basically meeting what were really already statutory and legal requirements that we as a district had in terms of providing services for students with disabilities, students that were English language learners, and so forth. So there's a robust system of progress monitoring that's part of this, in which we will be reporting student progress to the state of Florida directly, and helping students that are needing that extra assistance.
I've got a couple questions.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Clark.
So, and this is more towards Dr. Hall, so maybe she can shed some light. On that 19% and 8%, so option 2 and option 3, and I realize that everything is always tailored because it's the reason it's called an individual education plan. So how would we go about providing services if a parents pick their student to be option 2 or option 3? So
they have to meet criteria, and of course, the IEP team will determine that. And if it's determined by the team with the parent input, of course, that option 2 or 3 is fake. That's always that bar that we have to rise to. Is it fake? Is it free or appropriate education for that student?
Okay.
And whatever the supplementary aids and support that we need to provide that student in order to engage and participate in option 2 or 3, we will be held accountable to do so.
Okay.
Because we have to show equity.
Right.
And so part of that equity is to give students with disabilities or those that may not have a disability at all,
Right.
equal access to all options that we offer.
So and I realize that we're, by law, we have to do the total virtual option. As I sit here and 8% of our students, I worry about those kids the most that will go into that will not truly have any type of face-to-face, whether it's online through Zoom or they come one day a week to and meet with our teachers. I'm worried about those students. And I know that we said we wanted them to be a semester with that, but that worries me. And that's what keeps me up at night, that those students, that they're not going to, and so we're going to be behind the 8 ball again. And I know that our administrators are reaching out, and we still got 21% that we're trying to figure out what they're going to be doing. So I'm not faulting anybody, but I guess I just want to keep beating the drum that those are the kids that I'm extremely, extremely worried about of getting their needs met educationally.
And Mr. Howard, I share the same concerns, so much so that I'll set up a Zoom meeting tomorrow for our administrators to have a conversation about, and you're correct, our administrators, and that's so here speaking, that have reached out, not just once, not just twice, several times, and had those conversations with parents, sharing with the parents what we can offer,
Right.
sharing with the parents their options, of course, so they can make an informed decision. but we're always very concerned about the lack of interaction with their peers and not being engaged, and what that's gonna look like, and what we can offer face-to-face, that sometimes we can't duplicate those services as we know it virtually. So we're gonna have a conversation tomorrow, we're gonna talk through scenarios, real scenarios. We're not done reaching out to our parents again to make sure they understand the options that they are requesting, and then having that conversation about why do you feel that this option is better for your child versus what we have to offer. So we're gonna be having those soft but hard conversations with our families, because it's dear to our hearts as a parent.
I appreciate that, and that's, you know, I've been that way all along, that I'm fearful too, that there's a good percentage of those people that don't have internet connectivity, that they pick that, and I know each parent gets a choice, and I value that, and I honor that. I just hope it's for the right choice, so.
Please know that we are doing our due diligence
Yes, ma'am.
frequently and consistently through this process.
Yes, ma'am. So,
Mr. Howard, in speaking with many parents on the phone, I'm concerned about those parents that have spotty or no internet connection, but I'm extremely concerned about parents that are going to be leaving their children at home unsupervised and think that they're going to get online and do the virtual. And I had a parent that I spoke with that has 6 children from kindergarten to the 10th grade, and no one's going to be home with them.
right.
She said, do you think that's going to work? And I said, no, I do not.
I appreciate, and I know, and I said this all along when we sat in here with that workshop, that it's going to take having a difficult conversation to say, I respect your choice, but you have to understand that this may not be the best interest of your child. And not only students that have IEPs, but our ELL people, I worry about those too. So, and I know that those aren't great populations when you look at 8%, but 8% is 8%, so.
We're going to have to be flexible, that when those families want to come back, we've got to take them in, because it's going to be difficult on us because it's constant numbers changing, and how you're going to manage those classrooms and those classroom numbers. But if we don't, those children are just sinking deeper and deeper in that hole.
Amen, I know.
Another part of that conversation is when you know this so well, we're documenting, the schools have done a beautiful job documenting those conversations, documenting what we're bringing to the table, laying it out very clear, so any person who's not part of that conversation clearly understands what was discussed, what we share, what the parent concerns are, asking those questions, what are the barriers? Because we don't know until we have that open dialogue. And we're going to continue to do so. And may I also say we have parent groups out there that are watching to see and make sure that we're providing what we say we're going to do, that we're giving parents options. And we want to be prepared to defend our stance. And I agree with what you shared, and others have the same concerns about the well-being of our young people, our children, and their safety. Being home alone and no supervision, that's very concerning.
That's why, as Warren shared with you, there's a robust progress monitoring component of this plan. Else it would not be approved. And what that does is it goes directly to the state. And so in other words, if it ain't working, then we have to have a conversation to find something that's more working. So hopefully they'll come back to us. They could go away from us.
When you talk to this 8%, I mean, I wonder why they wouldn't go with the blended, because basically blended is virtual, except you get that Zoom.
When we can have these conversations with the parents, most of your option 3s go to option 2.
Right, because option 3 is all ingenuity, right? It's not.
Option 3 is 100% virtual, 100% at home.
On
The middle high school is ingenuity, for elementary, it's Florida virtual.
Right.
You know, I've talked with many. Watson Elementary is down to 22 kids doing virtual school-wide. And that is way down from what it was originally with the survey. And, you know, when I explained to them the difference between option 2 and 3, we've been able to get most of them to change to 2, but there's still some that are adamant. They're about option 3. They think that at some point we're going to make them come in instead of being able to do a Zoom meeting or a Google meeting. I just can't convince them. And I can usually sell a used car. But I just can't talk them 22 into option 2.
Okay, so I've got one last question and then I'll stop here. So, and maybe we don't have the answer to this question, but I know having about a good phone number or having an email, a direct line of communication with our parents. I'd love to know, and maybe Morgan, if there's any type of way to look and see out of that 21%. We've documented, we've tried multiple times to reach out to them. We have no way, and we don't know where those students are. Because, I mean, I know that there's got to be a high percentage, because I think in listening to our administrators when they were here, how many of them were spending day and night going back 3 weeks ago to reach out to them to just get us to the point that we're at 79%, which is fabulous. So
Yes.
I appreciate that. So.
That's a constant problem.
Yes, sir.
Hey everybody, it's Melissa. I was finally able to fix my microphone issue, so if you've got any questions too, I'm here.
Any other questions?
I will say that, and Mr. Weber has left, but him and Mr. Gorman also made home visits. But administrators contact them to say we're not able to reach a student or family, they're disengaged, they're concerned about their well-being. They have been making home checks as well, and we're coming back to get home checker.
Appreciate that.
Wow, that's above and beyond. That's excellent.
And I would
Morgan,
say
did you share that our plan was approved by the state?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Okay.
Our ESOL contacts have done a really good job as well of reaching our families that do not speak English, and that we couldn't, I didn't have anyone on campus in the summer that could speak Spanish, and they've reached out and done a lot of calling for those families too.
That's great. Thank you.
Morgan and Melissa, I know you guys put in a lot of work on this, so thank you very, very much for those efforts. So,
thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item H. Dr. Hall.
It's going to be brief, so it won't take very long. You're accustomed to this time of year. You have a plethora of papers, I know you do. You have a stack, and I think it was printed front and back. You have 2019-2020 Spmp, and then most recently, I think it was Wednesday, Thursday, I had it sent to Angela, thank you so much, that the state fast forward my request. It really matters if you have good relationships with people at DOE and they like you, they'll just kind of move you to the top. I won't ever tell my friends that. And they approve our 2023 Spmp because I want to do it all in one sweep. And I know that you would appreciate that. So again, good evening, Madam Chair and Superintendent Mr. Edison, our board members, our school board attorney, always here with us. Thank you so much, Mr. Delaney, our colleagues and our guests. So I stand before you to share the purpose and the importance of our ESC policies and procedures that we refer to many times as our Spmp. I'm going to post some statutes very quickly for the record. Section 1003.57, Florida statute requires that district school boards submit to Department of Ed the proposed procedure for the provision of special instruction and services to our students with disabilities. And this is supposed to be done every 3 years, but anytime there's a change in legislation, then we have to make adjustments to our Spmp. And that's why I stand before you more times than not every year instead of every 3 years. This is also a requirement by Rule 6A.6.03411 as a prerequisite for the district's use of weighted cost factors under our Florida Educational Finance Program. And these are our students who are receiving intensive services that require additional funds and additional staff. These are students who have a matrix of services 254 or 255. We get additional dollars
and that's funneled through or funded through our, our weighted FTE that comes through our general funds. And this document also serves as a basis for identification, evaluation, eligibility determination, and placements of students. And it's also tied to the funding that we receive under IDEA. So it's a requirement. If we don't get board approval, first approval from DOE, approval from our board, then there's a delay on the funding that we receive each year. The SPMP, you see, it's very, very thick. It's about 150 some pages. The SPMP includes information from general intervention procedures, eligibility requirements. You know that we have 13 programs that fall under the ESC umbrella, and that includes gifted. We are one of few states where gifted falls under ESC. Most states, gifted falls under curriculum and assessment. It also includes our discipline procedures. Of course, you heard Kim talk about McKay scholarships and what that afford our students with disabilities with an IEP, as well as students with 504 plans. That came into place several years ago. It also discussed the proportionate share of our IDA funds that we are required to allocate to our private schools here in Levy County. They get a percentage of those IDA funds, and also the guidance and assurances that we have to comply with to the policies and procedures set forth. I outlined, and I think you have a one-pager, the two new additional areas. I think you always want to know what's new, what's different, because you know what's been there each time and each year. So if you look on pages 124 and 125 of the 2019-20, pages 124 and 125, it speaks to, and this is brand new, the state wants to know how many of our students are on the alternate assessment plan. And what that means is that all of our students with IEPs, whether they're grade level standards or they're on the alternate modified curriculum standards, they too receive a standard diploma. You remember many years ago, I came before you and shared through our comprehensive student progression plan that there is no longer a special diploma as we know it. Special diploma has been long gone, I think since 2014. And so at the national level, at the state level, we're not to exceed 1% of our student population, student enrollment. No more than 1% of our students should be on an alternate assessment. Well, I must share with you that we exceeded that 1% last school year. This year, there was no assessment due to COVID-19. There were no state assessments, so we don't have data for that. But the previous year, we exceeded the 1% cap. The 1% cap would have put us about 55 students. No more than 55 students should be on an alternate assessment. 99% is the expectation from the state and from the national level as well. And so in this document, I had to justify why we exceeded the 1%. And the long story short, we had approximately 24 students that came to us out of district and out of state. So that impacts our number. And I shared that data via the SPMP. And so I do foresee that number perhaps increasing. It is an IEP team decision. Everything's an IEP team decision with parent support, and parents have to give consent to place a student on a modified curriculum. I want to be very clear. The standards in which our students on alternate assessment is not watered down by no means. We don't use that terminology. It's not watered down. It's aligned to the grade level state standards, but it's rigorous for that population of students. The identification of a student, regardless of their program, whether it be for specific learning disabled students that don't qualify, there are certain criteria one has to meet in order to even be considered for an alternate assessment. IQ alone does not make that determination. Adaptive behavior does not determine that a level of support for that student. But it's all of those different things, that data that comes to the table to determine if it's too rigorous for that student to be successful and progress on the grade level standards. And so that's why at the state level in Washington, D.C., For all states, no more than 1%. But we know the reality is we meet kids where they are. They come to us, we monitor, we maintain the data over time, and then we determine with parent support and data to support that this grade level expectation is not realistic for the student. We want rigor in what we do for the population of students, and it's rigorous. If you pull up the state standards, not best yet, because we have not made that shift completely, of course, but the Florida state standards, you'll see the grade level standards, and right below that, you'll see access points, what they refer to. Students having access to Gen Ed standards, and you'll see what the expectation for those students. And it is rigorous for that population of students. The other area that I've noted is the district procedures during a declared state of emergency. So you know, as a result of COVID-19, we had to submit a plan, and now we have to put it in our Spmp. You'll see the difference is that in 2019, 2020 was the beginning of these stages. My explanation was brief. For the 2020, 2023, it's a little bit more specific. And that was based on the work that we've done in this district to get us where we are, to make this smooth transition into the new school year, and having a plan in place. Because remember at the very beginning, when none of us were ready for COVID-19, we didn't even know it was going to be here to address. And so to put a plan in place very quickly. So it's more detailed for the most present Spmp, and it can be adjusted throughout the year as well. I think it's a good solid plan. I left enough wiggle room, if you will, because it just depends. And we have to be able to make those adjustments and shifts as need be in the betterment for our students. So with that being said, are there any questions regarding the Spmp, its purposes, how we use this tool? All of our schools receive a copy of the Spmp, where typically Marcy and I would do an overview of the Spmp. Everything you ever want to know about ESC and what our role and responsibilities are is located in this document. It's going to be included on our class link that's accessible to all of our instructional, all of our staff, not just instructional, all of our staff. And so we use this, and I tell my friends all the time, it's not important to know all the answers, but it's really important to know where to find the answers that you're looking for. And I know that you receive lots of questions from parents that don't know what they don't know. It's all right here. And if it's not here, then call me and we'll work through it. And we'll provide an answer, a true answer, Mr. Coward, to our parents that come before us and have answers that have questions that they need answers to. Questions, Mr.
Well, yeah, just for instance, like Appendix D, it says there, and that some of those are included on an attachment, but the attachment's not.
Oh, okay, yes. So for example, some things we had to upload is like our BPI, our best practice of inclusive education. And so what it is that we came together as each school has a BPI in terms of what's their plan to increase their inclusion model, including more of our students with their non-disabled peers. That's one of the attachments. Another attachment would be our board policy on restraints. Because in this document, we talk about restraints. We talk about we do not exercise, nor have we ever exercised seclusion in Levy County. So those are the attachments, like evidence of what we've done and what they've asked us to do. I'm sorry I did not include that. Great question.
This may sound silly, but if we look back on page 125 at the bottom, where we have the percentages of ethnicities of the children.
You say 125?
On this 125 of 155, the very bottom.
Oh, yes, they want to know about disproportionality. Thank you.
The disproportionality. Is the missing 13% in there ELL students?
Yes, it could be.
It is
because some of our students do have IEPs.
Okay.
Exactly.
It was 69% white, 17% black, less than 1% Asian. That's less than 100%. So I'm assuming
that's right. That's right.
That's what goes on.
Right.
It's just not in there.
And I will tell you, this is a little bit different that they've asked before. There's a lot of discussion about disproportionality. And sometimes we think of whites, and blacks, but we talk about Hispanics and other ethnicities. And the state wanted a breakdown because the question they ask is, do you see a disproportionality or disproportionate among your students on access points? In some districts, they do. They see a higher percentage in certain ethnicities than others. And as you can see here, no. And I said no, and then I gave them some additional information there as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
To support my saying no, that we do not see, and do we have disproportionate subgroups when it comes to the Florida State alternate assessment.
Believe it or not, there are some school districts that are bigger than states that have 0 restraints.
And those districts have been monitored very closely, and now they are reporting. But before, you're correct, they were not reporting that they restrain. And that's the last resort. We all know that. We only restrain students if it's imminent danger to the student or to others. It's not the first way of work at all. And so you may be asked, because I've been asked several times, many of us in this room, about our restraint data, who's been restrained, who can restrain, etc. Our SROs are the only ones that make that call on campus. In addition to our SROs, we work very closely with the mobile crisis team through Meridian, and they have clinicians, they have people who are trained to assess students to determine if they need to be restrained. No other entity, no other individual or professional makes that call in Levy County.
Just have to do Dr. Hall's form just a little bit. I've included how much. First off, it's a federal program, which means it's late in paperwork. How much work she actually does. I sat in on a training on the ESC and the COVID-19 and the response and providing kids with interventions so to get them through this crisis. And there's a lot of districts and a lot of states, from what I've learned, that are in some hot water with IDEA on what they have not done. So Dr. Hall worked tirelessly because I watched the emails fly and the different things with our kids in schools and talking with them about other teachers in there with it, meeting with these families and making sure we're meeting the IEPs. And a lot of work goes into that.
Thank you very much. It's a team effort. It truly is a team effort to have this done and do it well. And I'll be the first to say, if we make a misstep is not intentionally, by no means. We do have our kids' best interest at heart and our families in Levy County. Are there any other questions, concerns?
Just have one more question.
Yes,
So
sir.
where did we end up on percentage of funding on like our title, or not title, but so, we were running where they were, what, about 40?
Our RDA fund, you mean in terms of we're going to receive, we got a slight increase this year. So we're looking at about 1.5 million plus our roll forward dollars. About 80% of IDA is used to pay for salaries, just like through the general fund. And then what is left is our proportionate share that we have to give our private schools. And of course, we have to always have some cushion for those supplementary supports and services for our students, especially those students that we don't know is going to come before us.
When we give money to the private school, when the money flows through us to them, so.
Well, they don't receive the dollars.
They receive
the services through,
so we can,
right, through the consultation that I have with them. There are things that they do request and have requested in the past that I have the authority to say, no, it's not appropriate. I can't monitor that. Let's talk about what the needs is. Look at the data, see where the gaps are. Many of our private schools have used those funds for after school, before school tutoring. They have used those funds for speech language pathologists, therapy services, if you will. But we have consultation. I always invite parents of those private schools at the table as well. Sometimes they come, sometimes they don't, but they are invited. And then we decide collectively how that money would be spent.
Gotcha.
And then after 2 years, if they don't spend all the dollars, it comes back to our pot of funding. If there are no more questions, I ask the board for approval of our SPMP, and I'm sure I'll stand before you a year from now because things forever change.
That's right, they will.
Yes.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you
Hall,
very
for all your
much.
hard work. It's a lot of paperwork.
Madam Chairman, could we take a
Yes.
5-minute break?
Yes, certainly.
Or 3 or 2.
At this time, we will take a 5-minute break. We'll resume this meeting. We'll move on to item I, a review of our public hearing.
Madam Chairman, you have in your booklets, you have
Yes.
policy 8.01, which you are currently advertising.
Yes.
So the question right now is up for review. Do you have any comments, changes? If you just want to do, this will be up for, I think, the 25th board meeting. For approval.
Have we had any comments or anybody call in or talk? Any comments from the board?
It'll come to you one more time before Doc.
Thanks, sir.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you very much. Item J, the 2021 Small District Council.
All right, Madam Chairman, you'll have 2 decisions to make. Number 1 is to whether or not you want to continue participating in the small school district council consortium. So that's number 1. You see the resolution here in purchase order, and I would recommend doing so. And the second thing is, who amongst you would you like to represent you on that council?
I move the resolution affirming participation in the small school district council consortium.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I think it's a wonderful decision and great and very informative and keeps us up to date. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
So now you need to.
Now we need to designate a person, and we cannot, Chris has done a fabulous job for many, 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 many years, and great, and he served on the board for many, many years, and chair and everything, and we really appreciate everything he's done, and he's kept us up to date and worked very hard for us, but he will not be able to continue that position.
Not in that position.
So.
Could you describe what that job entails yearly? Yes. I mean, a minimal.
It is what, when there's things, it was a vehicle to help us with special facility, obviously. You all get the emails from Chris Doolin. So as you see something that comes on our radar, if it's really something that we can see that's going to be effective throughout the 27 districts, make sure and put it on his radar. So
as far as board member meetings or any other than conference?
As far as the liaison for us, no. So they replaced me on the executive board with Christy McElroy from Gilchrist. So she went on. There's a group of superintendents and board members that are on the executive board. So we still have somebody from this area that's on there. And Ms. Shirley Owen rolled up, and she will be the chairperson this year. Christy will be the vice chair, and I'm not positive on who would be the secretary, which is the position that Christy McElroy had. So
if you serve on this and you're not an officer on the board, then you're a member for our group, for our county. But the officer is the person who is the most involved, and I think at each of our conferences, you stay and go early and go to the meetings. And I think on Tallahassee, when there's a special luncheons and things, takes a little longer, and you have to stay for those meetings. Attend.
You're the board liaison,
right?
Small district.
And I have already been appointed to the legislative committee.
I nominate Ashley Clemency.
Second.
I think you'd be great.
Nomination cease.
I do too.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Congratulations.
She will do a wonderful job.
Please don't.
Okay. Thank you, Ashley,
Sorry,
for
like
being
that.
so willing to serve. We do appreciate that very much. Are there any changes to our minutes? Okay. Thank you. Board members, if you've read the minutes, do I hear a motion to approve? Will be July 14, 21, and 29.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda. Are there any changes?
Yeah.
Okay. I will start with Mr. Etheridge.
Not a lot. Got to see Miss Tammy Davis this weekend. She was my middle school science teacher. She's been in Williston Middle School, now Williston Middle High School since 1988. And she's been a great teacher for a long time.
Know where she graduated?
She taught me and all my kids.
Know where she graduated high school?
And that's all I have. That would be it for the
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you.
Same. Miss Davis taught me also. So she served her time. She was a great teacher. There's a lot going on. New baseball coach and a new dean at Williston Middle High. I will keep going through it because I don't want to leave anything out. But excited about Mr. Gore coming on for Mr. Weber's spot. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Asper?
I am not so old that Tammy Davis taught me. I am so old that I was actually in school at Bronson at the same time as Tammy Davis and know her maiden name. That's how old I am. So that may trump it all right there.
You will.
I won that one. Looks like we're filling in vacancies real good. How's it coming? Are we feeling good?
We are doing great. We've had a few leave us, and there's a little coming and going. Right now, we have 10 teacher vacancies and 4 aides. And a couple of those will be taken care of as soon as a certification issue is conferred in August from the university. So I think we're making really good progress. The administrators are working very hard, interviewing, trying to find the very best candidates. So I feel good about it.
That's all I have. Oh, and I also, Tammy Blanton at Bronxville High School. I went to school with her too. I had to get to be the old person.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Collard.
On this, the A1 there, so that's going to be countywide, the district the district pre-K ESE.
Yes, that's a job description currently. Laura says under the law.
Yes.
Yes.
Gotcha. How are we seeing an increase in that ESE population in pre-K? Is that so?
Yes, based on my conversation with Laura, it is increasing. She continues to receive phone calls from parents when their kids is.
Gotcha. And that goes through fiddlers helping identify some of those kids.
They get the child find, you do the pre-K staffing, et cetera, for those students that are ESE eligible.
Gotcha. So obviously where we have that Ms. Mickle will be countywide, then we provide the services. So,
Yes,
okay.
and this one, sure.
Good deal.
Could I say when Laura came on board, there were only 10 ESE students in pre-K. Now there's over 100.
Right.
And those students will generate the funding for that position.
Awesome. Well, I know that we've made a priority, so to have the all-day BPK, and I feel like we're starting to see the fruits of the labor come through with the students that have come to our BPK and come through, so I think it's a
Well, those
worthwhile.
kids are coming to us one way or another.
Right.
So either you meet or not.
Exactly. So, always good. I don't steal Miss
Don't
Perkins.
say it then, don't say it.
So-
I know what you're gonna say.
And just on 13, Miss Sandiford, so I know she served our students in Yankeetown and our students at Bronson Middle High School, so appreciate her and her efforts, so, and look forward to the new year and everybody else that's on here, so getting a little excited, so thank you.
Thank you. And what Mr. Coward was going to say was that we are so happy to have our homegrown student, Josh Watson, coming back to Chiefland High School. So it's good to see him come back, leave and come back. And that was, he is from Chiefland, and that's great. And looks like all the vacancies are getting filled. I'm thrilled to have that. And Looks wonderful, and I'm just really proud of all the hard work the teachers are doing. And today with teachers getting back, I heard a lot of comments, and they're all excited. And wow, Ms. Hires had a great group today with the new teachers, a big group. So that was terrific and exciting. And was that one of the biggest ones we've had?
That was only teachers too. That was only teachers. We have our support staff orientation on Wednesday. And so the team will be doing that all together. We had 41 today.
We've had much larger than that.
With all of them together?
No, we've had instructional personnel, bigger groups than that, just instructional.
Oh, okay. Well, it looked like a good group to me. So, yeah, well, that's great. Thank you very much. That's all that we've done. Anybody, if there's no other questions, what do I hear a motion to approve our consent agenda?
I got one thing.
Okay.
On CI, is that what we just approved with Dr. Hall?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So do we need to just leave it or strike it out, or
As long as the board understands,
that it's already been approved? So, thanks, sir.
it's there for convenience. It doesn't matter if it's voted on.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank
I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Edison.
Just have to echo Madam Chair's comments today about the enthusiasm and excitement that I got a chance to visit a couple schools today, and also the new employee orientation. Also, kudos on breathing, but there you are. Mr. Weber talked about a good job he's doing. I went down to Yankeetown first off, and the single point of entry that he's constructed down there is outstanding. I don't know if you've seen it yet. And they were pouring the concrete today for the handicap grant. It's going up front. So a lot of excitement, a lot of positives, and just glad to be part of it.
Can I speak to that?
Yes, sir.
The group of people that we have working in our department, people, and
I think I called 3 of them.
yeah, I just want everybody to know that, y'all sit here and talk about me, but it's people working on us. And, appreciate it. Let them know that. Y'all do the same, I appreciate it.
We will. All right, comments. Mr. Calvert, we'll start with you this end.
Appreciate Miss Kathy Lawrence had me, invited me to come this morning, so she had provided breakfast for the teachers and got to see them, and I got the privilege of handing out some year pins. So, and one of them, Miss Charlotte Yurdy, so she got her 30-year pin today. And I think there's no greater honor than somebody that's selflessly served this district. So, and for had those years of being there and being the face that people see usually when they come in. So her and Miss Sherry and Karen Boyles, Lauren Adams, and I'm sure I'm going to miss somebody, Ann Sigmund. But people that are reaching new milestones, so really appreciate us showing appreciation to our teachers, and I know that's a small token, but I think it's something that means a lot, that it just shows them that we value the hard work that they put in day in and day out. And I'm excited. It's a new school year. It's always a great time. I know there's lots of unknowns. I've seen lots of our staffs posting things. There was a lot of people that were posting last week about praying for our leaders, praying for our teachers, praying for our schools, and it's felt. And I think it's a wonderful thing that we live in a community that values that and values making sure we show grace and compassion, and that, the kids it's not just a number. There's a lot of things that go into our kids' education. And yes, we want them to be career and college ready, but there's things like sports and FFA and student government and HiQ and all these different things that go into it that create lasting memories. And it all goes back to the relationship that our staff have with these students. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for all the hard work that goes in behind the scenes that nobody sees to get us ready for this point, whether it's so Breezy and his group, transportation, getting ready, getting buses ready for us. So Mr. Superintendent and our district level staff, so Dr. Hall. So appreciate y'all. So Ms. Marla, thank you for all you do with our human resources. So
Thank you, Mr. Rascal.
You read my paper, that was exactly what I was. But no, in reality, no. I have also spoken with folks who are coming back and they are excited to be back. Some are extremely nervous, which is understandable. We're walking into something new, and there's something good about a nervous energy that you seem to do better when you're looking happening. I, for one, can't wait till we get it started. Let's see what we have to face, deal with it, and we're going to be on top of it. I would like to go ahead and ordinarily we thank Breezy, we thank our teachers. I want to thank our superintendent. Thank you for having the health department here tonight to not necessarily answer my questions, but where it will be on there for people at home to see. I said it earlier, I'll say it again. I think that reiterates the fact that we are prepared, that we are going for it. We have these experts here to say, somebody talked to me about what we're going to do about our kid. I'm not an expert. I'm an insurance agent and barely know what I'm doing there. So it's great when we have these people like Barbara Locke, who's got 40 years experience in this. She has been through other things, so she knows. And so to have that there, and I think that gives a bit of confidence to folks coming back, not only parents, but also staff. And I appreciate you having them here. Ordinarily, we don't have a whole lot to talk about other than the start of school, but we have an FFA banquet upon us. The Bronson FFA chapter will hold its annual banquet that had to be put off. It's going to be different. It's going to be streamed live, and I think they're going to put it on Facebook of how to get to see it. The kids will be there, and they will social distance, and there's not going to be a meal. There'll be some hors d'oeuvres, everybody 6 feet apart, and all this kind of stuff. But they on consensus wanted to have their banquet, and I think it's pretty cool that they're all going to get together. As a parent, I won't be able to be there, but I'll be able to watch it on the TV. The last thing I have to offer, and this has nothing to do with school board business. This has to do with personal business. I hate change. I am a person that if we start something like this, it needs to stay this way forever. And we're going to face a big change on this board. Got one fellow that won't be here, we know. One fellow may still be here, maybe two fellows won't be here. And I hate change. Both of these men are good men and have the best interest of our county at heart. And I want to say, I appreciate the way they have both run their campaign. You have not seen one attack the other. It's almost like these two guys are the best of buddies and they are looking out for each other. And I hate the fact that the citizens of Levy County have to pick between one or two, as far as I'm concerned, great men that have the best interest in this county at heart. And that's Cameron Asbell, the person saying that, not Cameron Asbell, the school board member. I just want to let you both know I appreciate the way you've run your campaign. One of your campaign will end before we meet again. And I appreciate the way y'all done. I want to wish you both the utmost of luck. And whichever one of you wins, I look forward to working with you. And I'm sure going to miss the other one. Like I say, I hate change. And I just want both of you to publicly know that I think both of you. I love you both to death. And I have enjoyed you. And I honestly believe the people of Levy County have a tough decision to make between two very, very good men right here. That's all I have.
Well said. Thank you. Ms. Kaminsky.
We're coming up on the start of the new school year, and I have very mixed feelings. But hearing Mr. Weber, hearing Ms. Hall, hearing everyone speak the health department, like you said, I think a lot of the what ifs, Ms. Wade sending that document out, the what ifs are, answered to the best of our ability. So there's still unknown as far as job description, the teachers teaching the regular class and the blended, and I think we're all just doing the best that we can or trying to accommodate the needs of everyone, the kids, the teachers, the principals. But just thank you to what everyone's doing.
I don't know, talk, Mr. Asbell's there, but you know, we've been in the middle of all this. I think we've been here every week for like 3 weeks now. haven't we?
Yes.
Seems like we've been in a solid week for 3 weeks.
We've all been together.
So I know the realities here because I was asked for the donation from their bread for the Joyce Bullock Elementary this morning, so the teachers are back. They have breakfast, and we're gonna do hamburgers for the staff at Williston Middle High School. So some normalcy is coming back, the ask of school board members, and that's good. That's really good. You know, it's crazy. I don't know, I would philosophize a whole lot. I appreciate the health department being here to give us some direction, but I hope within that, we saw that there's gonna be a lot of flexibility. There's not hardcore answers to every situation, and we're gonna have to be able to react to whatever comes at us, and it's gonna come at us. It's not a surprise that we're gonna have things to deal with. But I feel like in the other districts that I've talked to and conversations that I had with other board members in other counties, I appreciate everything that's been done here because I think we're as prepared as you can be going into it. And for one time in my professional career as a school board member, we are at an advantage, not a disadvantage, because we're this little rural county. And we're always at a disadvantage because we're not, because of financial reasons and those other things. But for one time, we're at an advantage going into this. And I've been watching this short video on Facebook for the past couple of days, and I appreciate the long video. I do have concern about telling everybody about what a great place we have to live. Next thing you know, everybody's gonna be moving here like they have in Citrus and Marion County, but the video was great, and thank you for the work that you all did. That's it.
Thank you very much. I think everyone's covered everything. Great comments. Thank you very much. And again, it's just, I think I've seen nothing but excitement about school and starting and all the good hard work. So I just want to keep it up and encourage everyone and thank everyone. It's been great. If there are no other comments, Mr. Delaney. Okay. Thank you very much. We will see you on the 25th, board. Adjourned.